Hi, I am Scott Herbst. I'm founder and president of Six Flex Training and Consulting, and you are watching or listening to The Flex. This is a conversation show where we talk with people who are expressing their leadership with the intention that it open access to you expressing yours. Today on our show, I'm really pleased to introduce you to Joe O'Keefe. He is founder and CEO of Compass ABA. They are a home-based provider that offers services. They started in northern New Jersey, but are now in New York, from the Bronx to Albany. And as always, I'm going to let Joe share his story and let you find out about him from him. So, Joe, thanks for being here.
Yeah, no, thanks, Scott. Yeah, thanks for having me here. It's really nice opportunity to kind of get to tell, a little bit about my story and Encompass ABA story and be able to reflect on that.
Awesome. So let's start there. I'd love to hear what got you into the field and then really what led you to found Compass. What was it that had you take that leap, and then hear about some of the challenges you faced and what you've learned in growing.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, I mean, working in this field, kind of helping others, specifically with, working with people with autism or other disabilities. People ask you, why you got into it in the first place, right? That's one of the questions. That's often a question that we ask people when we interview them and when they apply for a position with Compass ABA. And for me, uh, oftentimes it has something to do with a family member with a disability or a child, and for me, it wasn't really about that. I had always just wanted to be in a helping profession. I was the son of a doctor and a nurse, and they were just very compassionate people, and they kind of raised me that way. And I didn't know what I wanted to do. Honestly, I just kind of wanted to help people.
Mm-hmm.
And as I was kind of trying to find my way to do that, I studied psychology in undergrad, and there wasn't too many jobs you could get with a bachelor's in psychology. So, while I was delivering pizza, I was looking for job related positions and found one working in a group residence for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities.
Was
My
this with adults?
Yeah, with adults.
Mm-hmm.
And my main assignment was a young man. He was actually slightly older than me at the time, but he had autism and limited verbal skills, and engaged in frequent episodes of physical aggression and self-injury. And I just loved to be the one to try to figure out how to connect with them and how to help them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I can't explain it, much more than that. And I just kind of fell in love with the field and the profession from there. Um, and I worked in with similar people um, in similar settings for a long time. Over 10 years, I worked in group homes for adults and adolescents with intellectual and developmental disabilities, all kind of in the nonprofit sector. Started in Connecticut, and then when I moved to Brooklyn, I lived there for 12 years, and was put in kind of middle management and then senior leadership roles with these organizations. And it's there that um, it's only until recently, maybe when you asked me to come on this podcast, that I've really thought of myself as a leader, or
Uh-huh.
someone that could, like, dispense information about leadership qualities. But kind of as you're doing it, you don't really think of it. Um, but looking back, I think it was there working in the nonprofit sector where I've acquired a lot of my leadership skills. And that's because, um, it's very difficult settings. They're very difficult settings to work in.
Mm-hmm.
They're much different than kind of where I am now, working in-home ABA therapy. You're talking about working with adults with very long learning histories, and their behavior is a little, kind of difficult, a little more difficult to change. Their behavior can be severe, and you're working with people that aren't being paid very much to try to help them. So you're really trying to move mountains with no resources whatsoever.
Yeah.
So you gotta get creative. You gotta figure out what each individual kind of employee's, motivations are, and
Mm-hmm.
really tap into that to try to get them kind of the most out of them. Um, and that was a lot of tough work, but I think I reminisce about it, I think back on it often, and I really I, I I really think very highly of my time doing that work. And I think it prepared me to kind of jump right into leadership roles, if you will, when I made the transition to kind of just ABA providers. And that's what I did in 2016. I left the kind of the nonprofit world to work for a traditional ABA therapy providers. I was already a BCBA in 2015, but wasn't really practicing as such. But once I did, I found that transition pretty easy. And then, of course, I went from just kind of an individual practitioner, but then, of course, landed in kind of like an operations role pretty quickly, and worked at a few places, and then decided to start my own practice in 2020, known as Compass ABA.
What had you do that?
How did I start Compass ABA?
Yeah, what had you make the choice to go from working for other companies to I'm gonna launch my own company?
Yeah, that's a good question. Um, I um, I honestly, I had tried working in different roles in the ABA industry, and whenever I kept trying to do things the way that I thought they should be done, in terms of delivering high quality services, ensuring effective treatment, I would inevitably kind of just run into some kind of a roadblock that I was not able to get around.
Uh-huh.
Um, and it was honestly probably due to the position that I was in. I was so I just I never necessarily wanted to start my own practice, but I've I was kind of disenchanted a little bit about the obstacles that I experienced. And um, I, the only solution I found was to kind of do it all myself.
Yeah. How was that transition?
It, um, it was hard. To be honest, it was great. It's, you know, to a certain extent, it's nice, being your own boss, and not having to answer to people, especially when it comes to ensuring clinical quality and effective treatment.
Yeah.
Um, there's no one driving the bottom line besides me.
Mm-hmm.
And that allows me to do what's best for our stakeholders,
Yeah.
our employees, our clients, our families. Um, but at the same time, it's also hard because I've had to teach myself how to run a business, and that has been the hardest part for me.
Uh-huh.
So to account for my kind of natural feeling of wanting to help people, and provide a high quality service, I always have to err on the business side. I like force myself to make sound business judgments oftentimes, because I know I'm naturally going to overcorrect or lean towards the kind of the, oh, well, it's like, just trying to kind of like throw whatever resources we have on it to help people. So it's kind of a balance on my part. Being able to employ and train a very strong operations and clinical team has allowed me to do that, though.
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about that because I think that's probably a place where people get stopped, is that they see something as possible and then don't really know how to do it. And, you didn't really know how to run your own business and you did it. Can you talk a little bit about what that looked like to you and how not knowing occurred, and then in the face of not knowing, what there was to do to be like, okay, I'm gonna figure this out, right? And some of the actions in the process that you went through, getting from, oh, I want to do this, I don't know how, to, oh wow, here I am doing this, right?
Yeah, yeah, no, exactly. And I do think about that a lot. And um, I think there's a certain level of I'd consider myself risk averse for the most part, but there's a high level of risk to it that you kind of just got to throw yourself into.
Yeah, you don't know if you're gonna have clients, you don't know if you're gonna be able to hire people, you don't know.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think I think in order to start, and this is advice that I give to other clinicians looking to start their own practice. You have to have a model, right? You have to have a financial model that works, or you think is going to work theoretically. You don't know until you put it into practice.
Hmm.
Um, but it has to be some type of niche or, for Compass, it was an underserved population. That's how we started. I found
Yeah.
underserved population in New Jersey and really just kind of uh, dove right into that. And based on my model, once you got to kind of a critical mass of clientele or a large enough census, it was going to work.
Hmm.
Um, and then just kind of have faith in that model. But you're right. Well, you don't know, yeah, you have a model and a theory, but you don't really know what you're doing until you kind of throw it in there, and then you encounter, unexpected challenges along the way. So you really do just, yeah, you can't be too risk adverse.
Uh-huh.
You have to embrace risk. You have to embrace conflict, challenges, and you know, like I'm gonna sound like an old person here, but I think a lot of people today don't have that kind of figure it out attitude. And I think that's really important. And that's what I look for in other leaders is
Hmm.
people that aren't afraid to get in there and really not knowing what they're going to expect,
Yeah.
but they have confidence in themselves that whatever they expect, they're going to work hard to figure it out.
What are some of the risks you saw, or that you've seen, or that you've been like, or that for you was like, you know what? I'm gonna take this risk.
Yeah, well, I experienced the first one right off the bat because when you start an insurance-based healthcare company or the ABA or whatever, even if you're in network, well, especially if you're in network, your payers don't start paying you for 90 days.
Yeah.
They use that whole clock the first time.
Hmm.
So as a sole practitioner, as a sole business owner, with not very much startup cash, there were some dark days at the beginning, you
Uh-huh.
know, just trying to pay my behavior technicians to kind of keep afloat.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that going in. And that's something that I tell people starting their own practice too, is that, yeah, they don't pay for 90 days. And there's a lot of upfront costs with that you don't expect. Um, some other challenges. Um, well, I started in 2020, so COVID was kind of expected, but
Yeah.
you know, there was a lot of things that, we had to extra considerations we had to make because of COVID. Putting services on hold frequently for certain clients and then resuming. And um, there was probably one of the biggest challenge, the biggest challenge still facing an ABA company is turnover, uh,
Hmm.
hiring and retention. Um, you know, to to this day, I think about the hardest parts about running an ABA company. That's still the most difficult one.
Yeah.
Um, and we had the Great Resignation in 2022, I believe, at the beginning, and that was horrible.
Okay. So you got hit by that. What happened?
Just a bunch of people quitting, a bunch of people it just seemed like, and I used to talk to people in other industries, and I remember, in the news at the time that people just decided they just, didn't want to work, or they wanted to leave their current jobs to pursue whatever passion or hobby they had, which is great, for the entrepreneurs, the entrepreneurial spirit and people in this country. But um, we just used to have people kind of quitting left and right, and it really, like, it made us kind of look at our own company to make sure we were doing everything right, and treating our employees fairly, and trying to get them to stay. And yeah, we did a lot of introspection and realized that, yeah, it wasn't us. It was just this kind of collective change in culture. Um, and things have changed a little bit since then, but it kind of forced us to maybe even up the ante a little more in terms of retention. Like, um,
Yeah,
we
talk a little bit about that. Talk about the process of introspection and reflecting. Um, and I appreciate that you did that, because there was a big conversation of like people are just resigning, right? So you could have thrown your hands, well, this is the great resignation. Um, so talk a little bit about the process of introspection, and then talk a little bit about what you discovered, how you upped the ante.
Yeah, exactly. I never, during this whole process, I think, obviously, I think we're a great place to work. And that's why I keep started the company, and that's why I keep doing it. But by no means do I think we're like, God's gift to employment, or, God's gift to ABA. Like, there's always things we could do better. And
Yeah.
it forced us in order to gain an advantage, because Compass ABA has kind of always been at a disadvantage. We started by accepting Medicaid clients only.
Mm-hmm.
We started with just my startup costs as a sole practitioner. Um, we don't have any private equity. We don't have any investments. There's no banks involved at all.
Yeah, there's not a cushion to float on. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So it's always just kind of been, bootstrapping, and
Yeah.
that introspection that kind of keeps us going. So in order to survive the Great Resignation, we just had to do it better than everybody else, right? So we looked at our practices more. We are still mostly, at least operationally, like a remote-based company. Like, we don't have a physical location,
Mm-hmm.
because we're in home, which, a lot of companies started that way, and, during the pandemic. But, I had always been afraid that our employees maybe felt slightly isolated as a result,
Sure.
especially just working one-on-one with a client in a stranger's home for hours every
But
day.
it's a hard job. Yeah.
Exactly. So we looked at ways to kind of fight that isolation, provide a little more culture and community to the company.
Uh-huh.
And we've been able to do that, just to opportunities, to kind of socialize virtually. with other people in the company, and
Hmm.
also operations people in the company as well. More training resources to not only people to have behavior technicians feel more confident um, and in control, but also just kind of like keep kind of piquing their interests, like wanting them to keep learning more and realizing this really is a career path that they're on.
Yeah.
Think has gone a long way. Also, we've also introduced, and this has helped a lot. We've introduced, we borrowed this from another industry, but we introduced same day pay.
What is that?
Um, you can get paid the same day that you work.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So which was it's a little, little outside the box, but that's where we've always been forced to live there to, like I was saying, to kind of survive.
Yeah. I appreciate, I want to underline one thing, which is I heard the focus on growth and creating pathways for growth. And I know that research shows that people love training. That, I mean, maybe not everyone, but generally, like there's a majority of the population who like appreciate learning things and want to learn. It's like there's something in people that most of us want to learn and keep learning. Um, so I think creating that pathway or opening that up is a big deal. I am curious because this is, I know a lot of people in our industry struggle with the isolation that can go with home-based services. And will you just share a little bit more about how you were to creatively create connection with people?
Yeah. Yeah, and it started with just kind of making their supervisor a little more readily accessible and available.
Mm.
Our BCBAs are fantastic. They've always been, but we put a little more emphasis on just, even outside of session,
Hmm.
being a little more accessible and available. Uh,
Yeah.
which, that goes outside of the normal two-tiered service delivery model and ABA, right? In terms of billable hour. Well, in most states it does, or at least in New York and New Jersey it does. But that's something that
Yeah, I think that's pretty standard actually. Yeah.
yeah, we wanted to be able to offer that to our behavior technicians and make sure that we were, employing and fostering and developing that type of BCBA. And we always have, to an extent, but really to emphasize that even more. Our BCBAs are absolutely fantastic. But then also, so our talent acquisition team um, was kind of revamped to be just kind of more of our talent and culture team. So even more so, more so of an emphasis shift from acquisition to you know retention, but mostly just kind of creating culture and being that hub for having behavior technicians to connect with them and also to connect with each other. So we kind of increased engagement, um, allowed for kind of periodic text messages just to check in with behavior technicians every once in a while to kind of see how things are going, provide feedback surveys from them regularly, which they really enjoyed, and then kind of bonuses or rewards for completing those surveys, or at least like a raffle or something.
Yeah.
And then we've kind of do these quarterly events online, for our behavior technicians that usually centered around a holiday like Halloween or Valentine's Day or something like that. And it's an online event, but it's a social event. You can there's opportunities to talk. It's kind of like there's our talent team creates like a game or a game show that everyone participates in, and the winner
Uh-huh.
gets kind of like a care package or like comfort basket or something. And, it's probably it's probably not like, maybe not for everybody, but they've been well intended and well
Uh-huh.
intended and well embraced. So
Yeah. No, it's something. It's creating opportunities for people who want them, and cool.
There's a
Um,
lot of behavior technicians that probably just kind of want to show up and do their session and go home and are fine with that. But exactly, like you said, there are some that probably are, maybe some people that are newer to the workforce or, younger that are looking for that type of connection. And so that we kind of provide that for them.
yeah. Well, I know as someone who is running my own business that it can get lonely. And one thing that I've really had to do for myself is um create opportunities to connect with people, and not just like clients. I know I work with clients, but to create the actually I really look forward to doing these podcasts because it's an opportunity just to talk and converse. And e- there's something I just like about that, right? But I'm also part of a couple different accountability groups and places where um I'm not delivering service, or um like I don't have to be on, I guess, you know. So so cool. Um Anything else you want to share about what you've learned about leadership, how you've grown and developed, how you've focused on, how do I get better as a leader and leading a team?
Um, yeah, I think some of the most important things that I can say about um leadership are, center around how you deal with and interact with your employees on a daily basis and kind of creating that culture that permeates through the company. And um we want to create obviously like a you know a tolerant atmosphere,
Mm-hmm.
but tolerant of people making mistakes at the same time,
Yeah.
especially at a startup.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Um, yeah, I have had a lot of experience going into this, into starting Compass ABA, but I don't know everything,
Yeah.
right? So thankfully, I was able to surround myself with a lot of people that kind of had that figure it out attitude, but
Mm-hmm.
we're gonna make mistakes, just like I was.
Yeah.
And to not, right, to like not punish people for making mistakes. You want, because you're not punishing the mistake, right? You're punishing
Yeah.
that
Well,
figure it
cool.
out behavior.
Let's talk a little bit about this then, because I hear that a lot, honestly. The like it's good to make mistakes, right? And there's one thing to say it, there's another thing to live it. And sometimes I do see a disconnect between, like, people say they want to create it's safe to make mistakes, but then when mistakes happen they kind of freak out, and I'm like, so
Yeah.
so I've got two questions, and you can mix up the answers, whatever. But one, how do you attend to and make certain that you are actually demonstrating that and facilitating that culture? And then also, do you look at and get intentional about what kind of mistakes you encourage people to make? And then how do you set a boundaries where it's like, you know what, like, this is something we can't, there's no room for mistakes on this, right?
Yeah. So thankfully I've been able to, my team from the beginning is still here and we've been able to grow together. So that helps a lot. Um I yeah, I you gotta kind of pick and choose kind of what mistakes you put people in a position to make. Um, but you also have to be in a position yourself, and this is something I've always prided myself on, is being able to clean up the mess, right? To be there with them, holding their hand, cleaning up the mess, not to freak out and, get upset, but to step in and show them that no job is kind of too small for you as the owner, as the leader, what have you, to clean up the mess. I think that's really important. And also, being able to anticipate kind of what mistakes might happen, allow you to do that a little better, and it kind of keeps you from freaking out. Um,
Yeah. Do you have an example of that?
I wish I had a better one off the top of my head, but like yeah. So one of the one of the hardest things. So one of the things that I haven't delegated as a business owner currently is, well, we work with kind of a billing company, but believe it or not, for our first year, I did all our own medical billing. I taught myself how to do that too.
Yeah, I
So
totally believe that.
when I
That's where most owners start, I think. Yeah.
yeah, well, I just when I say I taught myself how to do kind of everything with an ABA company top to bottom. I mean it. So when there's not anything that I'm asking people to do that I haven't done or I can't also do. So um I'll take some of those things that I already know how to do and I know how to do well, and I'll just kind of let them do it and kind of pick and choose. And honestly, I try to pick and choose the things that I know that if it blows up, it's not going to be that bad, right?
Yeah.
One of those things is kind of collections, is collecting patient responsibilities, right? On the services that we bill to their insurance on this, but that they're not covered.
Yeah.
So
The co-pays, right?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
there's a particular way of handling that,
Yeah.
right? Um, rather than sending it to some collections agency right away, I like to be like, fair and diplomatic, and being able to offer like, flexible accommodations to families. And so I'll allow, sometimes people at Compass to kind of engage in those conversations, and kind of see how they go. Now, they could go, those kind of conversations can go any which way, right? Talking to people about money, and um, there's always questions about, well, do I really owe this? Like, because when they try to figure out their own insurance, they have trouble. Even when we try to explain the ins and outs of their eligibility and benefits, they have trouble. So families can oftentimes, for good reason, get quite defensive about, the bill that their insurance company has sent to us to send to them, and how we've arrived at that. So that's kind of an example of something that um, I'll let people on our operations team take control of it. Now, if I know going in that it's gonna be kind of a, you know, has a potential to be a volatile conversation, I'll kind of take it over. Uh,
Yeah.
but either way, I know that it could be semi-disastrous. So I'll allow that to happen, and then I'll either kind of coach them through how to take it from there, and then other times I'll jump in and clean up the mess. Another good example is, unfortunately, um, as I think any good business has, we've had to let people go.
Hmm.
Um, and that's never fun. Um, throughout my career, I've had to do it hundreds of times, no exaggeration at this point. So it's something that I have a lot of experience with, but it's still never easy.
Yeah.
So I've kind of picked and chosen opportunities to let other people do that, when I think either they can handle it, or sometimes if I know it's going to be challenging for them, I use it as a learning experience for them.
Hmm. Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, I mean that's a lot of what this is kind of like we do for the learners that we work with. It's very similar to the people that you work with, is trying to put them in opportunities to kind of learn and develop.
Yes. Awesome. We're getting close to the end of our time. What is next for your company, and what's next for you in terms of your personal growth?
Yeah. Um, our company is kind of at a point where we're maintaining status quo, to be honest. We're in 3 states, and um, and we continue to grow at a kind of a responsible, sustainable pace.
Yeah.
That's what I always envisioned, and that's what I would just like to be able to maintain. In spite of possible, socioeconomic factors. I just like to be able to kind of maintain that and be able to provide high quality services to people that need them. Um, More importantly, personally, um, I've been, running Compass ABA for more than 4 years now, um, and everything had been kind of going great personally. But then last year, I kind of realized that I felt like I was kind of in control of everything, my emotions um, and the stress level of running a company. Um, and last year, I realized that maybe I was recognizing some signs of anxiety, and I'm in the process of addressing that now, and that has been going great. So that's my primary focus personally.
Yeah. Awesome. I really appreciate you sharing that. I think one thing I know just people run into is this sense like I should have this handled. Like I should have this handled. Um, and so I appreciate you actually doing the self-reflection to realize like, wait, there's something going on here. And then looking for some resources, it sounds like, to deal with that.
Exactly. Yeah, you just keep going for so long, and
Yeah.
then you realize, well, maybe you don't have it handled. And I think that's really important for a lot of people out there to just I never
What
gave
tipped you off?
what's that?
What tipped you off?
I was just having these random dizzy spells, and
Really?
then I ruled out all medical causes, and I'm just
Uh-huh.
left with simple day-to-day kind of stress and anxiety.
Yeah.
And I think, I always just kind of worked at it, and but I enjoy my work. I enjoy my time at home with my family and my children, and all
Yeah.
the work that comes with that too. And I was just kind of doing it all the time, but I didn't realize that I guess I had neglected some self-care along the way. And the thing that I would recommend is whatever it is for people, just make sure that they are enjoying some time for themselves too, individually, even outside of their family or loved ones. Just make sure they're staying in touch with themselves.
Yeah. Thank you. Two more questions. What are you proud of?
Um, I'm proud of I'm proud of what I think is doing things the right way. That's why I started Compass ABA. That's why I thought it would work, and I'm proud that it's still here and still doing things the right way.
Awesome. And my last question is, how can people reach you if they'd like to connect?
Yeah, certainly. They can reach me or Compass ABA at hello@compassaba.org. That is the email address. Our phone number is also 201-477-0079. And I'm an extension 10 if they want to reach me directly.
All right, direct line.
There you go.
Awesome. Joe, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate the conversation. Thanks for opening up about, what you've dealt with and the challenges of opening and running a business. It's been personally insightful to me. And then I want to thank our listeners as well, just for engaging in the conversation.
Yeah, no, thank you, Scott, for having me. This was a great opportunity, and thanks to everyone who listens.
Yeah. All right. This wraps up this episode of The Flex. We will see you back here next time.